If you caught our last episode, then you are probably aware that this is not Chapter 5 that we'll be discussing today. This is just some behind-the-scenes stuff that we would normally cut out of an episode, but we had a pretty good conversation regarding book covers and etc. Maybe you'll appreciate it, maybe you won't. We had a good time, and like I said, normally it gets cut out. So in lieu of episode Chapter 5, we'll be back to our regular schedule on the 18th. See you for Chapter 5 then. So welcome back to Sci-Fi and Fantasy Read Along. Today we are discussing Chapter 4 of Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, which is a mouthful. I remembered another one called The Man Whose Teeth Were All Exactly Alike.
Does that include molars and incisors?
I have a copy of it where all of the teeth in the skull are exactly alike, and they're all teeth.
So he had trouble either eating meat. Either the person had trouble eating meat or lettuce, I guess.
There's also Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said, which is a really nice title in my opinion. And a good book as well.
Are these all Philip K. Dick novels?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's a fan of the long title.
Yeah, and yet, he's got stuff like Eye in the Sky, Martian Time Slip. He's got 3 word titles. He's got Solar Lottery, 2 words. Ganymede Takeover, 2 words. So it's just whatever's, whatever. The Man in the High Castle. Whatever strikes his fancy.
I'm into...
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
I gotta say, Philip K. Dick does come up with some really good titles.
Yeah, and good plots, and good stories, and etc. But anyway, I'm sorry, Uel. I was just barreling over you like a bulldozer.
No, it's okay. I like how, like Dave Eggers, how he would start with the title of the book led into the
first
actual
sentence.
Writing of the
Yeah.
Poems will do that a lot of times too. I'm more of a fan. I'm a fan of little tricks like that.
Little literary affectations.
Well, I mean, if we could see that in a fantasy or sci-fi novel, that would be a first. So it'd be new.
I would just like to see
it's a gimmick, is what it is.
More literature in the genre. That would make me super happy because literature, I find literature to be much more pleasurable to read mostly nowadays. Just because, I don't get hung up on. I got hung up in this chapter a couple of times. And I don't know if I don't know if it was on purpose. I suspect it wasn't, but we'll talk about it when these moments arise because I'm sure you guys noticed them as well. But anyway,
hey, I gotta ask, what do you say is literature? Like anything, a book, all books are literature. What do you mean?
I mean stuff that would go in the literature section because it's good.
Oh.
So even if it's the greatest romance novel of all time,
it could be really good if it was written by somebody who's really good, right?
Like Romeo and Juliet?
True.
Oh, but that's a tragedy.
Well, the thing is that certain levels of a genre will transcend the genre and become literature.
Like Kurt
often.
Vonnegut, like Jonathan
Exactly.
Carroll. Like, I mean, you can come up with some others if you would like, but there's not a whole lot. Mary Doria Russell. There's not a whole lot of literature. Margaret Atwood. I guess I could go on.
The Hobbit.
Not really. Like he's a great idea. He tells a good story, but as far as like reading a book, it's not fully enjoyable, and it's not so I don't know what the word, ponderous, is that the word? It's not so much that it can be considered great writing either. It's not so horrible. It's not so boring. It's not so James Joyce.
Have you ever looked at that book?
Which one?
Finnegan's Wake. Have you ever picked it up and just opened it up?
Dude, I cannot get through even the Dubliners, dude. Short stories.
Hold
I made
on a
it through
second.
the very first one.
Hold on a second.
Not all literature is something that the masses want to read, Philip. But a lot of science fiction and fantasy is not super great writing.
Yeah,
like
true.
a David Eddings is not. A lot of people have read him. Millions of people have read his books. More people
he's
have
rich
read his
because
stuff.
he sold a lot of books.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trashing on the guy by saying that, but his stuff is derivative, and it's derivative of Tolkien, and he doesn't bring any great wordsmanship to the book. But he's great for the masses.
What about Dune? Is Dune literature?
It could make it, but I don't think he's as good a writer as people give him credit for.
Okay. Well, you worked in a bookstore. You know how to classify.
That doesn't mean anything. Like,
you know how to shelve books.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
good at alphabetizing stuff. Hey, I'm gonna read you the first paragraph of Finnegan's Wake.
Here you go, sci-fi and fantasy.
And tell me if you would keep going. I'll try it. River run past even Adams, from swerve of shore to bend of bay, brings us by a commodious vicus of recirculation back to Howth Castle and environs.
What? That's Finnegan's Wake, one of his major ones, right? All of James Joyce's major. What am I saying?
Considered a masterpiece of modern literature, I believe. Man, I read the first page and I was just like, "What the hell is going on?"
I just read.
And I think you're supposed to imagine it being, spoken in an Irish dialect, so with a pronounced accent and kind of a sing-song lilt. I mean, the first word's not even capitalized. Like, what the hell's going on here? I don't know. It's a little too much for me, and I haven't read the primer yet, so we're not.
If I'm not mistaken, the thing about James Joyce is that he is one of the first stream of consciousness writers.
Well, that may be so.
And like that's the kind of thing we don't see in fantasy and science fiction novels too often.
Maybe not. But like, I'm not as wide read as I could be. Like, what did Philip Jose Farmer do?
Well, it's true. I don't know.
I've heard he's done some pretty amazing stuff in his day, but like, people don't talk about him much anymore. People don't read him as much anymore.
Well, maybe we'll get to the dungeons someday.
Those are not written by him.
Called?
That's like an edited by kind of a thing where he selected other people's novels to. He did the Fabulous Riverboat and the To Your Scattered Bodies Go. That's another good title, by the way, which the book's okay. It's just okay.
I think the title's a especially on these genre books, a really cool title. One that
great covers.
He wouldn't necessarily have that title for a fantasy novel, but
you could.
You could. A cool title though, and a really cool cover is very important.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the thumbnail? What do you think of that one?
What thumbnail?
I sent you the picture. You saw the picture. It's the picture on the thumbnail for the book that we're doing right now.
Oh, the one that I've used before here on the show, or not on the show.
I think it looks creepy.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be creepy.
Yeah, it looks creepy.
Yeah,
this one.
The guy does not look human.
No, but look at his teeth. Look at his eyes.
Yeah, he doesn't look human, and that his arm looks mechanical.
Yep, I thought.
And then it's only half his skull. Like his brain is transcending stuff. I don't want to read too much meaning into it, but you see like the series of pictures that look like a Martian landscape, essentially disappearing towards infinity.
Yeah, almost like the many worlds. But a good cover is a good cover, and like there's a lot of really bad covers, especially nowadays. Look at the cover of the book that we're reading.
Yeah, well,
Dullsville.
This is trying to look like a series of Philip K. Dick novels.
Professional.
It will look very nice on any person's bookshelf.
It's elevated.
It is elevated.
It's published by Vintage, so of course. Oh no, actually, this is Mariner. That's a major publishing house. That's not a science fiction publishing house.
So they're going to try and make it look as arty and as much like a Hemingway novel as you can.
It's just a trend across the way. Look at that woman N.K. Jemisin that won the Hugo 3 times in a row. Bang, bang, bang. I read her first book, and the cover is just terrible. It's like this meaningless sculpted stonework. It's an embellishment from a gravestone or an embellishment from an archway or something. It's just like carved stone up close. It has no meaning, no relevance to the book whatsoever.
Well, it's an inert image.
Okay, it has no meaning. It has no meaning.
That's what I mean.
It doesn't attract me to the book. It doesn't repel me from the book. But it's just not. It's so safe, It's certainly not going to attract anybody. You're not going to put that in a window and people go, "Oh my God, let's buy that book." You remember? Yeah. You remember the books in the porno shop that brought in Billy Pilgrim when he was an elder gentleman?
It was the Philip K. Dick novels.
It was
No.
It was the
Oh, I'm
Cobra
sorry, the
Trout.
Cobra Trout novels.
Yeah, but it was like they called it window dressing because it was stuff that was salacious or it would bring people into the store. Like no book cover on a science fiction book these days is going to attract anybody into a store.
Yeah.
They're so tame. They're so boring.
I agree. The cover to the book we're reading is pretty sterile.
Fantasy novels too. I mean, just look at almost every time it's just like a character in the book, maybe a monster in the book, and they're posing with a sword because everybody's got to try to be Frank Frazetta.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
And nobody can be Frank Frazetta except Frank Frazetta. So try something else.
That imagery has certainly appealed to me when I was younger.
Yeah, it's iconic. He's still iconic. You should follow his granddaughter on Instagram, Frazetta
Very
Girls.
good. The Frazetta Girls account
is constantly posting stuff that you have never seen that he's done.
Oh, they do close-ups of the oil paintings. It's just, boy, now he's a guy that transcends, though. It's not just fantasy art. His art is expensive. Like a master.
Yeah, people collect them.
For those of you that don't know.
Who Frank Frazetta is?
This guy is well respected way beyond just our fantasy novels.
He is the god of fantasy art, though. He's the god of fantasy art. I mean, he's up there. He's beyond most of them, but like Alan Lee and some of the guys that worked on The Hobbit, Tolkien's works and stuff like that.
Sure.
Some of those guys are pretty famous. There's a guy in England called Bruce Pennington who did covers for Gene Wolfe's books when they were published over there. All of the reprints of Clark Ashton Smith, some Lovecraft stuff, and etc. And they're oh my god, they're just so beautiful. He's highly collected, but I mean Frazetta takes the cake. Frazetta's the one.
So make sure, everybody out there, let us know your favorite cover artist of these genre books.
This isn't an interactive kind of podcast. You know
I know, but they should. Every once in a while, we should court people so that we can say, oh, you know what? We totally forgot about. Maybe someday we'll just have an episode where we talk about awesome covers.
Maybe.
I think we should.
Maybe. Let's get started with the chapter because that was a 20-minute preamble.
Yeah, everybody's gonna love it.
We're gonna cut all that out.